Hey, welcome to the video. Coming out of winter, which let's be honest, by Minnesota standards has been surprisingly pleasant, I'm starting to be able to get out more, so keep an eye out for more adventure videos coming. But if I'm ever stuck for something to do on a weekend, I'll often go and check out what furniture I can find at nearby thrift stores. Most of the time I don't find anything, but recently I found this mid-century modern-esque side table. Wasn't in terrible condition, it had a lot of scratches, some water staining, the surprise of chewing gum under the top. But for $14 and a bit of work, I felt like it could be a nice addition to the house, at the very least until I find something I like more. So I loaded it up in my car, brought it home and got to work. Started off by wiping it all down to get rid of all the dust and to see what I was working with. That's when I found the unpleasant surprise of the chewing gum. Prying it off with an old screwdriver was as close as I wanted to get to it. Thankfully it came off without too much trouble. But then I got to disassembling it to make it easier to work on. Disassembling might be a bit of a reach. Really it was unscrewing 12 bolts and then, well, that was it. Then I got started removing the heavily worn finish. I initially started scraping it, but quickly changed my approach and grabbed my sander and started sanding and sanding and sanding and, well, you get the idea. My biggest concern was the water stain that was on top and what I was going to do about it, but after sanding it turned out it was only in the finish, so once that was gone it was pretty much plain sailing. That was until it came to getting these staples out. They were surprisingly difficult. Eventually I got most of them out, a couple I had to hammer in the remains after they broke trying to get them out, but thankfully they weren't going to be visible anyway. After that it was back to, yep, you guessed it, more sanding. I finished off removing the remainder of the finish with 80 grit sandpaper and some hand sanding in the corners, and then worked my way up through 150 grit up to 220 until everything was ready for some finish. Took a break from the wood and quickly cleaned up the leather using some soap and warm water. At this point, it was time to take it to my finishing room, known during the week as my home office. For this project, I decided to try out a water-based stain so I didn't have to deal with as long a drying time and didn't have to deal with the fumes. I didn't love how it went on. It was a little patchy in places, but that could have been my technique. I've typically used oil-based stains, so if you have any tips, by all means leave it in the comments. turned out okay in the end though, and I definitely appreciated the lack of fumes and the ability to move pretty quickly. After finishing the stain, I decided to assemble it back together to see how it was looking. I figured this would allow me to finish off with some polycrylic as easily as possible, without much space to do each part individually. As I got into it, I realised that wasn't going to make a ton of sense, so time to disassemble one more time. You live and learn. I finished off a few coats of poly, and then it was time for one last reassemble and then reattaching the leather. And then time for some styling and those aftershocks you've probably been waiting for. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. It definitely looks better than it did, and it is the nice addition I was hoping for. Most importantly, Dakota seemed to approve, and that's what matters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.